It's Thursday, March 1st, and I have put this build off and put this build off for months. When I got the box of crap, which turns into the box of crap sent to me from old Lucas C. for the USACC, USACC, or whatever it is, group build. Let's get this thing dumped out. I think we better get started on it because it is due on the 15th. And like I said, this is, it's March 1st. This is what has been sent to me. Huh, so we got a head start since it's in black. Is that black primer or what is that? I don't know. All right, we got everything laid out. And like I said, I've been kind of thinking on how to do this build. Everyone's, you know, people are either building it box stock or a gas or I don't know. I've been really up in the air on this build. I'm still thinking about maybe a diorama. No one's mentioned a diorama, and well, I've got to be different. And I've been itching to do a diorama anyway. It's just a matter of deciding which diorama to do. But that's my parts layout. And like I said, this is the first. This thing has to be done by the 15th, so probably by the 14th so I can make a video on it. So I've got 2 weeks to work on this thing. I think it's time to get busy. First thing I did on my USACC build was begin to get the body ready for primer and paint. And I decided to go to the hobby shop and pick up some wood supplies because I was still in the air on whether I'm going to do build a barn or do the privacy fence, kind of the car in the backyard or maybe a barn find. Still wasn't sure. I was trying to feel it out here, going through some wood pieces and getting some things picked out. Well, I made some decisions after I found some wood pieces and ventured on back home and got it in primer and decided to start on my privacy fence. Well, that black thing I just showed you, my little balsa stripper, there's what they look like right now. The one I've had it for probably 30 years. And it's what I like to use to make wooden boards, 2x4s, strips of wood, and that's why it's called a wood stripper. Well, I got my wood all cut out for my fence. And I decided to set up my wood stripper. Got the height set. And there's that little guy. And all you do is you just follow along and run it down the straight edge and you get nice strips of wood. This little wood stripper is a handy little tool for scratch building anything out of wood. There's my planks for my privacy fence. Kind of getting things lined up, trying to determine how many I want. Now it's time to start doing the posts for the privacy fence. I reset my stripper and I'm making some posts. And I gathered up all my straight edges I have so I can start putting this fence together. I'm kind of determining my length and everything, how many boards I need for each panel. And I'm getting a 2x4 set up for the panels. And I just use super glue to put my wood together. A lot of guys ask me when I do dioramas, what's the best thing to use for a base? I like to use a clipboard, believe it or not. Just a good old-fashioned handy clipboard. They're very, very sturdy. Back to my privacy fence. That's the colors I use to start getting some gray onto my wood. You know, an old fence, they always turn gray. And I use some of those pigments there to add a little bit of earth tones to it. And I'm sharpening a pencil because I'm getting ready to put nail marks in it. Of course, every fence goes together with nails. Back to my clipboard. Getting that all cut down to size. I've determined that's the size I'm going to go with. I love the clipboards. They're very, very sturdy. Just, it's a great idea for a diorama. Kind of getting things mocked up here now that I got my clipboard cut to size. Trying to determine where I'm going to put my fence. Determining if I need a longer fence or a shorter fence. And now I'm starting to weather up my fence even more. Getting the post glued onto the fence. And And I pretty much determined where I wanted to fence, so now I cut the length, and now it's set and it's glued onto the post, or glued onto the board. The posts are glued onto the board. Now it's time to turn my attention to the body while that's gluing up. Well, I'm taking a Dremel tool and I am rusting out the rear quarters. Yep, this is an old rusted out hull that you would see somewhere deep up in Michigan, where there's a lot of rust and salt on the roads, or a lot of salt that creates rust on the roads. Back to my fence. I wasn't too happy with my fence, wanted to weather it a little bit more. This little shaker unit I'm going to use for grass later on. I'm getting ready for my diorama pieces. Got some cinder blocks. Get my cinder blocks all put together. And I think the cinder blocks turned out pretty nice. I got the cinder blocks from Outlaw Trophy Resins. I think they're the best on the market. Here I like using a shop towel whenever I do a tarp. I got my shop towel cut down to size on the size I wanted my tarp. Next I turn my attention to a little salt technique on the body, and I'm salting up the trunk to get it painted. Here's a busy picture right here. You can see a lot going on the bench. You see my shaker for the grass. You see the diorama in the top. There's some projects on the left I'm working on. I've got 5 or 6 projects going on here. I like to use dirt from the garden. I like to sift it and sift it and sift it, and then put it in a container called fine dirt. It makes it super kind of realistic. Now I'm back on the body after I laid my dirt, letting the dirt dry. Got the body pretty much ready to go. Starting to rust up the rear quarters more. And I'm going to put an intake manifold in the scene. And you got to drill out all the holes whenever you do a piece like this. So I drilled out the throat bore, the water neck hole, and the bolt holes. Now I'm starting to rust it up. Back to my diorama. I've got the dirt on and some leaves in there and some grass on there. Kind of mocking things up with the car, making sure it's where I want it to go. Back to my intake manifold, rusting it up even more because them things are crusty and rusty when I sit outside. Here's my leaves I use. Those are my leaf punches from Green Tree. Love these leaf punches. You just punch them out. You can use pretty much anything to make leaves. I like to use real leaves, punch them out, put them in a container and save them, and then you just kind of sprinkle them on your diorama where you want them. For them to stay in certain spots, I like to just use little dabs of Elmer's glue. And you have some leaves, which are, I think, pretty cool and add to the scene. Well, I like to collect leaves and try to get that container filled up. And man, it takes forever to fill up one of them containers with leaves. There's the back side of the diorama, coming along pretty good. And there's the front side of the diorama. She's covered up, and it's an old car sitting in someone's backyard. How many times have we seen that? Especially when you go knocking on the door and say, hey man, I see that old Roadrunner in your backyard. It's been sitting there forever. You interested in selling it? No, I'm going to fix it up someday. Maybe that's what we ought to call this diorama. Gonna fix her up someday. Because they're never for sale, are they? People get lucky when they go to someone's house and say, sure, you can have it, or buy it for cheap. But anyway, and that's my USACC, United Scale Automotive Creators Group Build project that went from a box of crap to a bag of crap to a pile of whatever you want to call it sitting in someone's backyard. We'll see you on the next video on Throttle Power.